Hey there, crew. It's Mark from MENWHOBULLET. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today as we kick off a brand new series here on YouTube. This is called my Bullet Journal Recreation Education Series. And what I'm going to be doing as a part of this series is finding bullet journal artists from across this community, picking out spreads of theirs that I think are very interesting. We're going to be breaking them down, inspecting them, and then recreating them in this video. Today's artist is going to be Martha's journal, and I saw this amazing November spread that she did with this window, but a really cool image that's peeking behind that window that actually leads to a monthly tracker. This is nothing like I would normally do in my own bullet journal. I was so excited and inspired by this. I knew I had to make it as a part of my first episode. I want to mention that all of the artists that will be a part of this series have given me permission to recreate their pieces, and all of their links to their Instagram, websites, and anything else that I could find are going to be down in the descriptions below. Of course, I had to have a proper notebook for this entire series, so I'm going to be using one of these from a past fall collection. This is an Archer Olive A5 size dot grid notebook, 160 GSM pages. It can take on almost anything that we can throw at it, so I thought it would be ideal for this series. I'm going to be sketching everything out on my Leuchtturm 1917 sketchbook. I love this thing for ideas and just getting things out on a nice blank page. So let's go ahead and start breaking down this awesome spread from Martha. I was so excited about this one just because of all of the space that we have here. We have a number of elements that we are going to be taking a look at here. I think obviously the first one is going to be the window that we're going to create kind of in the center of the page. If we're really breaking this down and just thinking about it as shapes, we have the nice little windowsill here. We're going to have to create some symmetry here. So we'll just kind of draw a line down the center and know that we're going to have a big, large oval that's going to be over top of that there. Now, what's so cool and I think so intriguing about this is that she has this really cool window design that's going through. So we're going to have to think about that as we're creating this and using a lot of our lines here to do that. All of these lines will have to be a bit thicker to create all of those panes. And then we'll also be filling that in with color as well. So just something for us to think about as we're doing this. But we will have to pay attention because we're going to have to cut out a bunch of these as well to create these open window pieces. So the window is going to be probably the most important thing. Obviously, it's the biggest deal on things that we're working on today. So now that we have that, let's pay attention to some of the other small details around the window. The other thing that really caught my eye with this definitely has to be these amazing clouds that we see here. They all have a very cool looking wispy design. And what I think is so neat about them is that the way that she outlined them. So they're not all just one straight line. She actually went through and she has a few little gaps as you go around. I'm just going to kind of trace out a little bit of an idea of what I think a cloud looks like here. Just looking at what she's done, kind of creating these big, fun, wispy shapes. And I think one of my favorite parts of these are definitely the swirls that she has going around in these as well. So we have a few of these clouds throughout, and there's just small little variations on these. Sometimes she has the swirl of the cloud on the top. Sometimes she has multiple on the page as she's creating those, so they're going to come in and out throughout the lettering, sometimes on the top, sometimes on the bottom. As I'm creating these on the page, I'll definitely have to focus a little bit more on drawing them with a pencil first, and then creating those dotted lines around the clouds and disconnected with my pen when I go into it. Just think that'll be a lot easier. There's two other elements on here that we're going to pay attention to. The first is actually going to be a very, very subtle detail that I noticed, which is falling behind the clouds and falling behind the window. And it's these small little blue lines that she has. It's almost like a grid that's going around this page. I like that effect, and I think it works really well for this kind of sky. It doesn't need to be as harsh or as transparent as we're seeing it there, just having those at different sizes. They're cutting behind the window, they're cutting behind the clouds. So even though they're all the way in the background, I think that's going to be one of the last things that we're going to put on the page, because that way we don't have to worry about erasing over anything or possibly seeing that grid line through the clouds or anything else that we're creating. And then the last element that we're going to see here is going to be this awesome looking lettering that she did. Now, I'm not super awesome at lettering. I like to say I have a few little skills. So we're going to try to find a good mix between what my skills are and what she's done in the sizing of it to make this page look very cool. So let's go ahead and plan out all of these pieces and what they're going to have to look like and where we're going to do them on the page. First and foremost, we're going to have to start with that window because it's the prime part of this page that we're going to be paying attention to. Next, we're going to have to do the lettering that's on there, since that is also above those clouds that are down below. We can just do all those clouds together. Then we're going to do the clouds as the third layer. And then we're going to have this grid that's falling behind that in the dark color is going to be the fourth layer that we're going to create right at the end. Now, the thing is that this isn't just one page that's doing this. There's actually two pages that are a part of this. On the backside of her spread, as you can see here, she had a really cool looking tracker that went around the space of the window. So not only do we have to think about the spacing of our window, but we also have to think about the page behind it to make sure it's in the right space. So you see just the bookcase area behind it, but then all around the border of that is going to be the tracker. So as we're on our page, we'll count out the spaces that we have. We'll also pay attention to how many spaces from the top and the left it is. And that way we'll be exactly where we need on our first page, and we'll copy those same measurements to the back page where we'll create this cool looking bookcase. Now, while the bookcase is very cool looking on this, I am not going to doodle in all of those different elements that she has there. And that's because I love stamps. So I actually have a bunch of these really cool stamps from Eric Small Things that has a bunch of these little elements on it. We've got lights and we have books and we have some other cool things. So these are what's going to be on my bookshelf. And I'll go ahead and maybe do some watercolor or something like that inside of my journal behind it to give it a little bit of a different look, but very much following along with what Martha did as a part of her overall design aesthetic for this peek through window for her monthly header. All right, so we have our plan of action. We know what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and crack open our brand new bullet journal and start planning out for our page. Let's go ahead and crack it open. We're going to be creating our very first page on the very first page here. Usually I create an index or something like that with a bullet journal, but since we're focusing a little bit more on that creative side this time around, we're going to go ahead and start here. Because it's been a minute since I've been inside of an A5 size, I actually have an A5 size cheat sheet here that I'm going to be using for my spacing just to help me out a little bit as we're creating this. Now, if you're interested, I actually have a printed version of this that you can download, and I'll put that link down in the descriptions for you below. So let's go ahead and count over 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We'll put our line right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and lay down just a really light pencil mark to get me started. What's really important about laying down that center line is that's going to help us figure out our overall spacing for the window first, since we have to duplicate that window spacing on the page behind it. So we need to have some spaces for the clouds that are going to be in here. So let's go ahead and just pick a spot right here. That should give us plenty of space at the top and the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces from the top. All right, for our width, let's go ahead and count over from the left-hand side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do 6 spaces over from the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so that's going to be the top. And then we need to take ourselves down this window, leaving space for our lettering. So we'll probably need that lettering spacing to be about here. And then we can do some clouds around it. So let's go ahead and end our window sill right here. 10, 11, 12, 13 from the bottom. This is just going to be really helpful when we go onto our second page and create that same rectangular space. Now the window edge is going to be right here, and I want to go about 2 spaces past the window edge for the sill. And then I'm just going to use the dots on my page here to help me figure out the rest of this. And then we'll just do another one right below it. We'll just go in 1 square about halfway down, and then that'll be the little bottom sill that we have there. All right, next part is we have to figure out kind of our arch that's going to be here, because that's going to be a really important part as we then draw in the details of the inside of the window. I just happen to have a little bit of a little circle stencil here that I have from Moxie Dory, so that's what we're going to use to create our arch. You could use any type of circle stencil, I would say, to create that. Maybe that would give you what you're looking for. So that'll be kind of close. It's not going to be an exact replica of the page you're creating. That's totally okay. Especially with recreating something, you can take an idea without it being an exact like carbon copy of it. Let's go ahead and just figure out the rest of the small elements that are going to be on here. So what I really loved about her window was definitely the circle that we have here. So I'm going to recreate that here to give us a little bit of space. Maybe I'll let the top of the circle be here. Okay, we're also going to need the center piece here. And then she has these arch out. Actually, that needs to be a little bit further down, right? There we go. We need that space. So it kind of cuts from like about, let's actually do that. Let's do it from here. Let's go in and then down. So it'll create like a big Y on the page there. Cool. All right. So now that we have that, what we need to do is we need to sketch in all of the larger pieces of this. It's going to be the pane of the window, and that way we have the extra space around. So what I'm going to do is just take my pencil and I'm just going to lightly sketch just outside of the lines. I'm going to do that on the left, follow the same general pattern on these inside pieces here. And then I'll do the same thing coming around the edge here. All right, now that we have the general layouts of this, I think we're going to be good. Actually, let's go ahead and just make sure we add a little bit at the bottom here for the bottom of the window pane. All right, now we have our window, so let's go ahead and just do something real quick, which is going to be drawing out the inside portion of this window on our next page over. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and count over the 13 spaces. 13. We're going to count down 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to count up 13 from the bottom. And then we're going to count over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, now that we have that, I'm just going to draw a light rectangle here. This is just going to represent the bookcase that is going to be on the inside. And then anything else we create around this, it'll look like it. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and we're going to just do the lettering real quick, because then we're going to draw in our clouds, and then we'll add those little blue grids behind it afterwards. Now, when we're doing the lettering, it's not going to be exactly perfect, but sometimes what I like to do is just put little guardrails around my lettering spacing that I'm doing. I'll draw it in pencil, and that way I can control when I actually put down my pen what that looks like. So I'm going to draw out just a small little pencil line here on the very edge of where I'm going to be writing in this November date. I'm just starting off very thin with these pencils. If you want, you can certainly draw in the full letter shape and then go over it again with your marker when you get there. But for right now, we're just outlining. So those are kind of our two most important pieces that we have going on here. So for the rest of this is going to be the fun of drawing out those clouds. As I mentioned, I'm just going to be using my pencil to begin to outline these. And then when I come back with my marker, I'll add some of the ins and outs that she has with a little dot versus the line, breaking it apart a little bit. Right now, I'm just focused on creating these beautiful, wispy looking clouds. All right, so now we have the general layout in pencil here on our page. The next thing that we're going to do is start to add some of that color to this part of the page before we cut out the rest. So we're going to need some materials to do this. I'll be the first to admit I am not awesome with color, so I'm going to follow closely to what the artist originally did, but I'm probably going to have to use some of my own materials. So here's what we're going to use to finish out this piece on this page. I don't know that I have the entire collection like she has for her color, so I'm going to use a gray brush pen for the insides of my clouds. I have a brown mild liner that's going to be created for this entire door frame that we're going to have here. I'll probably also use this gray down in here too. It looks somewhat similar to what she did for the clouds. We've got a really light colored mild liner here. This is going to be for that grid pattern that's below everything. I also have a lettering pen here from Yison. This is going to have a nice little brush on it, and that's what we're going to use for our November lettering that's going to be down there. This one is in small, and then I'm going to use an extra small one, and we're going to use that as we go around the outlines of our clouds later on. I think the most important part is going to have to be the window, because that's the hardest part we're going to have to cut out. And if that doesn't work out, the rest of this page doesn't work out. So let's go ahead and start with that. I'm going to be using the bullet or the blunt end, not the chiseled end of my mild liner. And I'm just going to go over top of my lines that I have here. We do want to make sure as we are going over the window and these panes that we are making sure they're pretty thick. We don't want to accidentally cut too tight as we are cutting out the rest of the window that we're not using and then kind of have a floppy window there. So make sure they are nice thick lines that are going through. I'm going to be using a pair of crafting scissors to cut this just to be safe. If you're using an X-Acto blade, just make sure that you're being careful and giving yourself enough room. Right, and then we're just going to take our light gray marker. We're going to create our windowsill. All right, the time has come. Time to cut our paper. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm so nervous about doing this, but it's no better time like the present. So I'm just gonna press my scissors through here. We'll see how I do. I think that an X-Acto blade might actually be the better option here. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's grab an X-Acto blade to cut this out. I'm gonna go ahead and put this cutting pad underneath of this. And then I think this is gonna work out a lot better and be a lot cleaner. All right, we have just some fine little details we're going to touch up with our mild liner. I wasn't super worried about necessarily getting the pinpoint accuracy on this windowsill because it's impossible, but we're just going to clean it up real quick to make it look nice. I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of paper here, and then I'm just going to go over top of the outlines of this with my marker. Next thing I'm going to do here is just go ahead and go over my lettering here. So I'm using this small brush. That's going to give me these really nice thick and thins as I'm pulling down and thin as I'm going up. What I love about using a pencil first is that I feel so much more confident when I'm going over my lines versus if I was just doing this without any type of guide, I would be so nervous that I was going to make a big mistake and kind of go over my space, which is what I tend to do whenever I'm not paying close attention. So never feel bad about using a pencil first. Literally is the best thing you can do. Now that I have those letters in, I'm gonna go around all of my clouds next. So I have this really nice fine tip brush here. So what I'm gonna do is just go around, and then every now and again, I'm just gonna lift my pen up, maybe drop like a little tiny dot down. Sometimes I'm not going to connect my line at all. And that's going to give a similar look to what was on the other one. Okay, now that we did that, we're going to take a really light gray pen here. And if we're following what Martha did on here, she just took her pen and she just laid down some dots. She wasn't fully coloring it in. And I like this. You can go a bit lighter and darker as you're going through. We want to make sure we have kind of the same thing. We're almost going to kind of dot around the letters here a little bit. Some places you want to pay attention to, whether you're doing this or coloring anything, is anytime you have like a swirl, you can go in a little bit darker underneath, and that's going to give you like a shadow and some dimension without having to go over it again with another color. So there's a few spots in here where I'm going to do that. After I put down the first color, I'll go over it again, just around that loop. All right, now we have our whole first page. So what's great now is we can also look straight through here to see whether or not our grid spacing was right on the reverse side. So I have all of my dark marks here, as you can see. So if I lay this down, everything lines up. This one actually doesn't line up perfectly. It's actually off a little bit, but that's okay. As long as our lines are inside of here, we'll be all right. I am noticing over here on the left that it has a little bit of extra space versus the other one. So I'm just gonna flip this page real quick, and I'm just gonna actually elongate this part here. That way it gives us plenty of space, as it does on the other side too. So we should be okay. We'll also elongate this side too so that we have equal spacing on both sides. And let's go ahead and create a cool looking bookcase using some stamps and also a cool tracker around the outside too. All right, inside of this space here in these bookshelves that she created, she has a few shelves. She has a few different drawers and things like that, and a lot of different things on there. We only have so much space here. So what we're going to do is actually just create 3 shelves. We are going to make them 3 different sizes. And then what I'll do is I'll just create a little space down here. And these will be for the 2 little drawers that are back here. So when this is shut, you're going to see the 3 shelves and you'll just see the top little part of the drawer here. I'm going to use the edge of my ruler. I've already started a little bit. We're just going to round out these edges just a little bit, as you can see. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just bump out to this next square that we have here into the edge. And I'm going to do the same thing around my space. If you have a ruler that isn't rounded, totally cool. You can have straight edges. No one's going to get mad at you about it. All right, now that we've done that, we can go ahead and build out just a little bit more on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 spaces out here. So let's go ahead and bump up 1, 2, 3, 4. And that'll give our spacing for around the outside. She created a nice big space for all of the items that were on her tracker here. So we'll do the same thing. We have a little bit of a racetrack looking deal on here. She also did have a really nice little detail on the top of her bookcase here. So let's just go ahead and mimic that real quick. It's kind of like a crown almost. And she put some line details in here. I'll just kind of sketch those in real quick. All right, the one thing that I didn't account for here is that her tracker has 30 days on it. She was using it as a full tracker for her month. Thinking about this now, if you want to do this, you're actually going to want to reverse this process in that you want to make sure you have all 30 of your spaces first and then figure out that size and cut your window to that size. So a little tricky and interesting how that worked out there, but super smart. So we're going to have to think of a different way to do this. I think the best way is really, I'm just going to split this page into quarters for right now. I've gone ahead and also just drawn out these sides here to say like, okay, if I'm trying to get close in that time span, what does that look like for me? Let's see how far this gets us. If I go ahead and I split this up every 2 squares, how many spaces will that get us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, this could work out. Okay, so let's do that all the way around. This is going to get us more than what we need, though. This is going to give us well over 30 or even 31 days. Well, then we can just use the other space for something else, like a key maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Ooh, I got lucky there. All right, if we do it this way, we actually can get 30 and even 31 if you had 31 right here on this corner, which leaves this whole space open here for us. Okay, I think this is going to work out pretty good for us here. So if we're following a similar pattern to what Martha did in her journal here, instead of putting the extra items down here for her key, I'm going to actually put them over here. So we're going to turn this into home stuff. And this was family time. I'm going to get rid of the just meh. I'm just going to turn this into social and active. I'm not discrediting meh feelings. It happens a lot, but for our space, we want this to look somewhat symmetrical. Technically, we probably could have put meh up here, but we'll keep it looking nice and even here and we'll be good to go. Now that we have all of this in here, let's go ahead and ink it in, and then we'll go ahead and add our stamps and a little bit of color, and then we'll be done. Okay, for this next section, I'm going to go ahead and lay down a bunch of stamps. I have a lot of different kinds. They're all kind of like household stationery things. It'll be kind of a mix of things. They're different sizes. They're not all from the same collection, but I'll make sure that I link all of them down in the descriptions for you below if you're interested in picking any of them up. For this part, I'm going to need an acrylic block, and I have all of my cling stickers here, so they'll all stick on here. And then I'm going to be using VersaFine ink. This is black ink. It's also waterproof, and that way I can use watercolor over top of it to add a little pop of color for myself. Since I already created my faux shelf here, I'm actually just going to sit all of these darker color ones right on it. That way you won't be able to see that black line behind it. It'll kind of disguise it a little bit. Because some of these items in this next collection here are a little bit more transparent and see-through, I'm actually going to lay them down first And then I'll go ahead and draw the shelf behind it. That way you won't be able to notice as much as the other one that's on there. I really love Martha's design. She did such a good job with this. I think it's the coolest looking thing, and I love that I can use anything really. We could be drawing our little doodles on here if we wanted to. I'm just a big fan of stamps, so I'm always gonna choose stamps. Now that we have all these items on here, we can go ahead and draw that perspective going back just a little bit. And then we'll just go ahead and pull that line behind them without going through each. And this will allow us to add some paint or some color or whatever we want to the back of that shelf. I should have used a ruler. That would look a lot better. All right, I'm loving the way this is turning out. It's looking super cool. Let's go ahead and just add some colors from the front, just to kind of carry over here around the outline of that shelf. And then I'll use some watercolor real quick and we'll add little pops of color in here. And then we're gonna be done. I'm really excited. We'll just use the light blue that we used on the front for those little lines, and we'll go ahead and add these all the way down. All right, for this next section, I'm actually going to be using the Sidekick. This is from Nicholson Peerless Watercolor. And each of these watercolors comes in sheets, so they're really nice and easy to use. I have pretty much every color collection here that I can get, so I'll have plenty to kind of add little pops of color throughout the rest of our bookcase. Not really supposed to do this, but I'm actually just gonna mix some of my color on here just to create a lighter brown. Can really use anything, but just using my little stamp here. I'm just gonna add just a little bit of color here in the background just to represent the bookcase brown that we're going with. You don't have to add anything at all if you didn't want to, but I just wanted to add a little bit of background color since we're gonna be able to see through the page, and it's going to be on there. I think it's going to look really nice. If you're not a big fan of using watercolor inside of your bullet journal, you can always go with a crayon, or you can go with colored pencil, which is, I think, what Martha may have used inside of her spread. So whatever you want to do to color in your pieces. Again, if you don't have stamps, you can also choose to go with your own doodles on those pages too. It's totally up to you. If you plan on using this as an actual activity tracker for yourself in your own bullet journal by recreating this, you're going to want to pick out 4 colors to use, or however many colors you have for the different type of activities or moods that you're tracking. I'm going to go ahead and fill out the 4 that we have on here. We have 1 for home stuff. For any days that consist of mostly doing things for home, we're going to use that color. Family time is going to get this color here. Get a little brighter for that social stuff. And the last one is going to be for activity. All right, and I think we're in a really good spot, so let's go ahead and close our page. Let's see what our little window is going to show. That's so cool. I love how that looks. So we have our monthly overview here with our window looking through, and we pop that open, and we have a really cool mood tracker right inside of here with a few of our favorite things. This turned out pretty awesome. I honestly had so much fun with today's video. This is stuff that I would never ever do, but I want to thank Martha so much for being open to letting me go ahead and recreate her art piece here. This was definitely pushing me beyond my comfort zone. I'm not a big fan of cutting pieces of paper out of my journal. It's very committal, and I'm non-committal when it comes to things like that, but also just her imagination, her creativity. This was so awesome, and I absolutely loved recreating this and also talking about the elements that went into building something like this. I'm so incredibly inspired by this and these different ideas and just different ways of approaching your bullet journal, making it super fun, but also very functional at the same time. I'm all about that. I absolutely love that. You can check out all the links to Martha's Instagram and this post specifically down in the descriptions below. And if you have any artists that you would love to see to be a part of this series, make sure to tag or leave their Instagrams down below, or maybe there's a specific photo that you're looking to be a part of, and I'll reach out to them and hopefully they'll be down to be a part of this bullet journal recreation education series. I have a few artists already lined up. I'm super excited to say that my next episode is going to feature one of my favorite and coolest bullet journal artists, Joshi Curran. You all know and love her from Instagram and YouTube, and of course her Facebook and her Discord. She's got it all going on, and her her bullet journals are so incredibly cool and so thoughtful. So we're going to be breaking down one of hers. I haven't selected just yet. She has a lot to choose from. So I'm excited to find one that we really like and break that down as we continue this series throughout the year. Be sure to subscribe and tap that bell if you want to get notifications when I have new videos coming out. A lot of good stuff happening in 2023, and I'm excited to continue this one along as well. I'll talk with you very soon. Happy planning.